Tommy with ReviewMeta here. If you're anything like myself, you're skeptical of the reviews you read online, and that's completely justified. There are massive financial incentives for sellers to collect as many positive reviews as possible, whether or not they're from honest customers. You probably already have your own method of checking the reviews and deciding whether or not you can trust them. Maybe you read some of the top reviews, check what the critical reviewers are saying, see if you notice anything fishy, and then ultimately go with your gut feel. Well, we're doing the same thing here at ReviewMeta, but to a much greater scale. Instead of checking a few reviews, we're looking at millions, and instead of a gut feel, we're using algorithms and data science. For every product, we run 12 different tests on the reviews and show you the results in the report. It might feel like a lot of information to take in at first, however, there's a pattern to each report that you'll quickly pick up on. Now, we're not going to get into the details of each of the 12 tests in this particular video. However, we'll try to explain generally how they work. For each test, we start by identifying reviews that contain a potentially suspicious trait. To use the most basic example, one test looks for reviews that are unverified purchases, which is easy to spot since they don't have the verified purchaser badge. For each trait, we look at two things. The first is the overall percentage of reviews that have that trait. The next thing we look at for each trait is whether or not the reviews that have that trait are giving the product a significantly different rating than those who do not have the trait. Not every one of our 12 tests works exactly like this, but you'll be able to see the differences on the report itself. Now, based on the results of the 12 tests, we go through and calculate a weight for each review. If a trait is found to be problematic, we devalue all reviews that have that trait. The severity of the devaluation is determined by the results of the test. So in some cases, we'll only devalue reviews that have that trait by just a few percentage points. Other times, it will be a devaluation of 90% or more. Reviews that have a lot of suspicious traits might be entirely removed altogether. Once we're done applying the weighting, we recalculate a new product rating and number of reviews and show you that at the top of the page. The pass, fail, warn is based on how much change we see from the original rating and review count to the adjusted rating and review count. Now, we understand that this is just an estimate and you might not always agree with how much we devalue each trait. So we give you the option to pick any weight you want for each trait and recalculate the product rating based on your own personal preferences. The idea behind this is that unnatural review detection is not an exact science. Everybody has their own opinion on what type of reviews are okay and which are not, and that's why we created a tool that you can use to analyze reviews however you see fit. Now, there's a few important things we want you to keep in mind while using our service. The first is that just because a product fails our test does not mean that you shouldn't buy it. It just means that our system has detected patterns in the data that fall outside of what we'd expect to see if the reviews were generated organically. We don't actually know anything about the product itself, we're just looking at the reviews. Blindly basing your decision off only our analysis results is just as bad as blindly taking all reviews at face value. The second thing to keep in mind is that ReviewMeta is a tool to help you better identify and understand patterns in the reviews. We're not claiming to detect fake reviews with 100% accuracy because that is simply not possible. In fact, we don't even use the word fake. There's a lot more that could lead to a bias than just textbook fake reviews. We fully understand that every single one of our tests isn't always going to be perfect, and that's why we show you as much data as we can. Our intent is not to make a decision for you, but rather to provide insights so you can make a better informed decision on your own. Anyway, hopefully this gives you a better understanding on how ReviewMeta works. If you haven't already installed our browser extension, click here to get it so you don't have to copy and paste another URL into our site again. If you have any questions, get in touch at reviewmeta.com/contact and we'll be happy to answer them. Thanks for watching.